Welcome to Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Kevin Delp.
And I'm Melissa Delp.
Today we're looking at Atlas Enchanted Lands by Renegade Game Studios. Atlas Enchanted Lands is a 2 to 4 player card game. It's designed by J. Alex Cavern, and the art is by Beth Sobel and Jeff Oglesby, and is published by Renegade Game Studios.
You're exploring and discovering an enchanted forest. Will you stay at the same place and kind of see it throughout the day? Or will you try to see multiple areas during the same time period? You'll be making predictions and bets on whether the place or the time will be revealed first. Whoever can do the best at those predictions will score the most points.
There's a deck of cards with 4 suits numbered from 1 to 8, 4 tokens that match the 4 suits, and 64 betting chips, 16 in each player color.
At the start of the game, you lay out the 4 suit tokens from early morning to evening. These will make rows for the grid of cards.
Throughout the game, players will be laying their cards in the play area. Each card in the game has a specific spot it can go. For instance, the ones go in the first spot and they have to match the time that is on their card. So this one, with the full sun, goes here. Since the cards are numbered 1 through 8, there are 8 columns in the play area.
On your turn, you play a card from your hand into the grid, and then decide if you want to place a bet on that card. You can either bet that the place, the column, or the time, which is the row, will score first. This can be confusing. Think of the place as a set of the same number, and the time as a run of cards in the same suit.
Column of the place will score when 4 cards are face up or 3 cards are face up and 1 is face down. Once it scores, the cards are turned face down. There would be no way to score this column if 2 or more cards are already face down.
A row, the time, will score when 4 consecutive cards are face up. It can also score if some of the in-between cards are face down, but there has to be at least 4 cards face up. 3 won't cut it.
This is where it gets interesting. You're trying to determine, should I place my bet on the column or the row? Which is going to score first? And then you declare your bet by placing your token on that correct side, and you can place up to 5 tokens on that card.
But you do have to be careful because your tokens are limited. You never get them back. If you bet incorrectly, those tokens are removed from the game, and if you bet correctly, they actually stay on the cards and they're scored at the end.
Once the players have played all their cards, the game ends. You receive 1 point for each chip you've correctly predicted, plus you score 1 point for each stack of chips. So red scores 8 points for chips plus 3 for the stacks. Whoever has the most points wins.
So there's a good bit of conjecture and guesswork that's going on throughout the game. If I actually have 3 cards for a run, but my opponent has the 4th card, then I'm kind of at that person's mercy to whether or not they're going to play it in a way that's going to make the run score. There's also the possibility that the card might not even be in the game because you always take out at least 1, usually 2 cards from the deck. And so there's no guarantee. It's not a sure thing that the card you need to complete your run or your set is actually even in the game.
And the distribution of cards is different depending on the number of players. So for 2 or 3 players, you actually take out all the number 8. And there's actually a deck of cards that you can be pulling from, so you might get you might be getting some helpful cards. But in a 4-player game, all the cards are dealt out to the players except for 4. 2 of them are removed from the game, but 2 of them are actually placed in the grid.
Right, so if you're playing with 4 players, what you're dealt at the beginning, those are all the cards that you have to work with throughout the game. You might be able to collaborate with other players, though. If I notice that Kevin plays a 5 and he's betting that that column of 5s is going to score first, and I have a 5, I might also bet on it, play it, and then bet on it that it will score in the column. The tricky thing is, though, that you cannot place bets on cards if that card is going to complete the run or set.
No.
Yeah. So there's no swooping in and being like, I'm going to finish it and bet 5 chips and make a lot of points. You just can't do that. You have to take risks. You have to bet before you know which way it's going to go.
The art is very tranquil. Sort of reminds me of Sunset Over Water by Pencil First Games. And this makes sense because Beth Sobel illustrated both games. And each card is a different illustration, which is great. It's interesting to look at a place and see the differences throughout the day.
I was able to play this at different player counts, and I enjoyed it at all of the player counts, but some of the strategy and even how much control you have does shift as the number of players increases. I did want to mention that even though this is a small box game, you do need a large-ish area to play it because you're creating that grid that's 4 cards by either 7 or 8 cards. So it is going to take up some table space.
So if you're looking for a quick game that plays very well with 2, 3, or 4 players and has a beautiful art, then check out Atlas Enchanted Lands by Renegade Game Studios at your favorite board game store.